lot of times somebody will come in and you'll think that maybe they've just been lazy, or they don't have a great diet, or they never prioritized exercise before. But through an assessment process, you can see no, they've got significant movement flaws that when they go into try and exercise, they end up injuring themselves frequently.
Similarly, we start with an assessment. For us though, we're looking at brain health, we're looking at development.
In both of y'all's worlds, I mean, sometimes what you notice first isn't always the driving struggle.
We do have those conversations too in our office where he has this diagnosis or that diagnosis, so he has that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go ahead and still talk about some sensory concerns or some anxiety stuff. It's not the ADHD part.
So I think a lot of times people start to identify labels and take those on when they do try to solve that problem, and they are met with lack of success multiple times.
So Chris, man, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to hear some of these answers that I got for you today. So I'm gonna put you on the hot seat.
I'm
Isaac
excited,
too.
man.
Don't get too comfortable over there. They're
Ready.
coming. They're coming. So what's so tell us. I mean, I said a little bit about what you do, but I want to hear in your words. What is it?
Sure. So I'm the owner of Resilience Training. We are a wraparound holistic service that provides physical therapy, personal training, and athletic recovery, as well as nutrition. And basically what we are trying to create is a service that hits all of the main pillars of somebody's journey if they're trying to make a transformation, or if they're trying to improve post-injury or improve performance. And I've been in the health industry for roughly 10 years, and then doing resilience training for about 3. So that's kind of my focus.
Amazing. So all that said, what I hear is people are coming to you wanting to improve.
Yeah.
Let me start the first question with, what is the biggest misconception they have in just saying, hey, I want to get better. I want to do better. What do you think?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I went back to when I worked at a box gym, like a regular gym. And when I was there, people would often come to me and they would basically act like personal training was the one solution to the whole health spectrum. So they would think, if I get with the trainer, I'm going to lose the weight, I'm going to improve my mentality, I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to feel way better. And, sometimes training does do that. It improves all those aspects for people, but frequently there's an entire health continuum that supports somebody along that journey. And the main misconception that I noticed was people would try to solve, all of those aspects with just one solution. So integrating as many different types of solutions into one thing, I think is really, really powerful.
Absolutely. So how do you know when somebody needs, more reps versus a completely different approach?
Yeah, I think it comes down to assessment, right? Like you have to get a really good understanding of where the person starts, because a lot of times somebody will come in and you'll think that maybe they've just been lazy, or they don't have a great diet, or they never prioritized exercise before. But through an assessment process, you can see no, they've got significant movement flaws that when they go into try and exercise, they end up injuring themselves frequently. Or maybe they have a complicated medical history, family history that causes it so they can't go over a certain heart rate without causing issues. So then you have to be really careful about making sure that what they're doing is the right thing for them. And you won't know any of that unless you have a good assessment process.
Love that. So assessments, that's immediately going to lead me right over here to Isaac. So tell us, I kind of summed up what you do a little bit, but let's hear it in your words. What is it that you do?
So I'm Isaac. I'm the owner of Brain Balance here in Tulsa, and also an office in Oklahoma City. I've been in the centers working with families directly for over 15 years now. We opened the Tulsa office back in 2011. And so similarly, we start with an assessment. And for us, though, we're looking at brain health. We're looking at development. We're looking at oftentimes parents are coming in and wondering, what's going on? Is there really something to be concerned about? Is it just being a boy? Is it their age? Is it something they're going to grow out of? And so we want to start with an assessment, because that's where we can get a real picture, a full blueprint of tangible, actual gaps in development, things that are not going right. and then we can start to determine like what's the right next step.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously, kind of same in his world, that people are coming to you wanting to improve.
Sure.
What is one of the biggest misconceptions you think they have in wanting to,
Yeah, I think a lot of it's people are frustrated and they're like, why if they just try harder? It's like they'll see their son or their daughter holding it together emotionally or behaviorally or with anxiety sometimes. And they're like, if they would just do that all the time. And like, why can't they just do what we've talked about?
Right.
We've talked about it, we've rehearsed it, we've practiced it, and yet there's such inconsistency. And so they're feeling frustrated. So is the kid. The kid's feeling frustrated. Everyone's frustrated, and they're just like, we don't know what else to do. That's a regular, common starting point when families are walking into brain balance is something's off. They've seen it look right sometimes, but there's no consistency there.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big coach's misconception is we have to get that through to them that effort alone can't solve every limitation. At least that's what I see. They're like, give more effort, like we were saying in the beginning, practice harder. But so what we see versus what's really happening. Chris, give me an example. Tell me about someone who looked like they simply needed to work harder. Mm-hmm. Do you remember a specific client?
I do have one client in mind. So she came in and she was, slightly overweight, older lady, maybe mid-60s. And during our initial consultation process, I realized that, she hadn't had a structured exercise since she was probably, 16 and playing sports. But she had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and she had a severe osteoporosis. And so going to Google and looking on Google, she'd seen that she wasn't supposed to lift anything over 5 pounds. And so she'd gotten this kind of like Google advice, which had handicapped her from actually taking action. And then the result was that she had some significant, degradation in her shoulders and hips where she was in pain all the time, basically. So through that initial process, we were able to establish, what was her function, where was it right now, and what could we do in terms of progressing it over time.
So what did change during that approach? You think
I think the biggest change for her was realizing that, she could progress. So it wasn't a matter of she was capped by these illnesses and limited to kind of be in pain for the rest of her life. And instead, if you take the approach of bringing somebody back to the area where they feel really confident and comfortable, and then slowly, incrementally approaching progress, they start to feel encouraged and they start to feel like they can make progress and improve. And I'm sure you see this with kids too, where as soon as they start to feel a little bit of momentum in terms of things are going in a good direction, then they get this big burst of mental energy and motivation to actually improve and continue. And that happened with her too. And so now, when we started, she, couldn't raise her arm past here, and she wasn't able to press more than maybe 5 pounds. She's pressing 20 pounds and has full range of motion in her shoulders, just an incredible transformation just due to this, assessing where she was at, finding a good baseline, and then slowly giving her wins through progress so that she felt motivated to continue. And I think if an outside view looked at that, they would think like, oh, she just needs to go hop on a treadmill and work out. But in reality, what she really needed was a very scaled back version that allowed her to progress more gradually. And then she could, make good progress.
Absolutely, and I see you nodding over there, so I know that's got to be you're seeing similarities. What's a similar pattern you've seen?
Yeah, I think in life we talk about it in like these moments or snapshots. It's like a lot of times when a family or a kid comes in, a parent will be frustrated that they're constantly seeing anxiety or they're constantly seeing meltdowns, and when we start working together, it's like let's look for the little quick wins that are moments. So that situation happens that normally would cause anxiety or normally cause a meltdown, and that one time all of a sudden it doesn't. It's like the parents are on edge, like ready. They're like they got the walls up ready for a meltdown, and instead it like doesn't happen, and they're looking at each other, they're pinching each other like wait, is that real? And the next time meltdown, meltdown, but then another time, hey, no meltdown. And so these little quick wins, when parents start recognizing those, it gives them that same burst of energy. It's like, hey, oh my gosh, like this is starting to work.
Yeah.
And the kid starts feeling more confident. They're like, I can hang in there a little bit more. I can go into that classroom. I can go into that sports field and not break down after one mistake. I can hang in there even if I mess up on a word reading in front of the other kids in class. It's not the end of the world. Like those little wins, they stack up.
That's so awesome. While you were talking, I was just thinking about one of the big perception shifts that I work on with clients is to look at their progress from a further out perspective, because people get really zoned in, like you said, to one moment in time, and they see like all of a sudden, oh, I feel like I've gained some weight, or I feel like I'm not as strong, or I feel like there's more pain. But if you zoom out and you look at progress from a wide out perspective, then you can see like, no, incrementally you're improving. It's just like a stock chart. It's not like a linear line, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like we talk about like no one day is the defining moment. Like one rough day or one rough situation doesn't mean you still struggle with that all the time.
Yeah.
And then when we take that step back of, well, hang on a second, we used to have meltdowns 5 times a day, 5 times a week. Now it's every other Tuesday. Like you're still having some meltdowns, but
the progress is crazy.
That's an amazing amount of progress in a short amount of time. So yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know in both of y'all's worlds, I mean, sometimes what you notice first isn't always the driving struggle. I mean, it's what we notice. We see it. We're like, oh, he has that, or she, or something. Mm-hmm. That's not the, but that's not always the driving struggle. Can you guys think of something that's, somebody walked in your gym and you see something, but it's like, what's, and then you get to the real issue.
Root of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different levels with that question too, because they're in like the fitness world, it becomes almost a microcosm for their whole life, right? So you could talk about like the personality aspect. You could also talk about like the actual how a person's moving. So let's say someone did a squat, right? And I noticed that they had terrible internal rotation on their left hip, and that was causing their knee to cave in, which was potentially causing strain on their joints, and that's why it hurt. That might be my first initial impression. Mm-hmm. But then through further assessments, we could figure out like, no, it's, ankle stability is the real thing here. So again, it goes back to you want a thorough assessment, and you should always be willing to reassess and see, was I correct with the initial plan, and do we need to modify it to move forward? And then, in a personality perspective, it's like a lot of these people, they just don't have practice showing up for themselves over and over again.
Yeah.
So having some accountability and a coach to be like, hey, I'm going to be here at 7 a.m. on Tuesday every single week, and I will expect to see you here as well. And then together we can do this process. That's also, I think, can be a big shift for somebody.
Absolutely. Isaac, I know in your world, I mean, you usually, it could be a parent calling and saying, hey, we've got a diagnosis, or I've noticed, or the teacher said, something like that. What has been your experience in that world? Something that they see, but then it takes on a whole different,
Yeah, no, I love hearing your perspective, and it's just kind of crazy how same scenarios can apply in so many different walks of life. As I was listening to your story, a thought came to my mind around ADHD. Like, there is absolutely a percentage of kids and students that, if they're on medication or not, but like if they can simply focus, then something like their reading in school can improve. But there's this other set of the population where they'll come in to our office, a lot of times have a diagnosis maybe of ADHD, or the parents are at least considering that. But as we start digging deeper, I'll ask them a question like, what do you think, if they could focus and stick with it, do you think that would be enough to actually allow the reading fluency, the reading skill to improve? And the parents will pause. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
For a percentage, it's like, no. So then it's not necessarily a focus issue. Mm-hmm. It's a reading and a fluency and a retention issue. Like, the actual learning of the academics is the problem, but they get burned out so quickly, basically, as they're trying to do the reading, that they're distractible, they're all over the place, they're really avoiding what's hard, because even if they focus, they can't learn. So if we don't address the actual underlying root, then we can just, focus on the focus, and never get the success. So
That's really interesting. So as a kid, I was diagnosed with both dyslexia and ADHD, both of those. So got lots of cognitively going on.
Yeah.
But I ended up, doing a lot of, I guess, hard work, but constructively so,
Amazing.
on the whole reading side of things first. And one of the things I learned in that process was that a dyslexic person puts in like 7 times more mental energy to get through the same text that a regular person would be able to process pretty quickly.
Right.
So it's that same kind of idea where you could burn out trying to read through something when it's not really that your attention's lagging, it's that you are putting so much mental effort into that one thing that you just, you don't have the same amount of resources.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you have more resources. You're giving all kinds of resources.
Yeah.
Like that's yes, like so often that's the point, is that these kids, these teens, these adults, like they are trying.
Yeah.
Like they're giving everything, and yet it's still often not enough. At best, they find ways to cope, work around,
Yeah.
deal with it, because they are trying. But yeah, if we don't address what's going on in the brain, in our office, what's in the brain, with the processing, with the retention, with the different areas connecting, you just continue to have to work and work and work. And for some people, you get over that hump and you find a way to, be successful. But I think there's also so much missed potential,
Yeah.
so much lost potential, that they don't ever get over that hump. It's like, if only we could have gotten the reading figured out, if only we could have got the anxiety figured out, if only we could have gotten the emotions in check, all the potential in the world. And yet I think there's a lot of people in this world that missed that opportunity, at least up
makes a
to
lot
this
of
point.
sense. Yeah, and it's so frustrating for the kid.
Sure.
The kid just feels stupid.
Right.
And like, man, why am I so unable to do this basic thing that everybody else is doing?
Yeah, they take it on. Like it's their identity. They're like, I can't read.
Yeah.
I have ADHD. I'm the bad kid in class. Like they own it as like them.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a heavy weight to
Yeah.
take on and go into each day.
So how do you see them breaking that pattern mentally? Like, how do they get out of feeling like, they have those labels and that's who they are, and then adjusting to, healing cognitively and being able to approach life?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. And where I'll normally start, if I'm having a conversation with parents, if they're mentioning a diagnosis, like these diagnoses are real. They're real. The thing is that they're not the cause. Like if you look at like a dyslexia diagnosis, there's no dyslexia bug that's running around up in your brain causing the symptoms. It's instead a combination of real symptoms in how you retain, process, the visual system, auditory system, how all those parts are communicating, what's happening, like effectively, ineffectively, overworking, underworking. And that combination of all those factors and how your brain is connected and wired and developed is more deeply the cause of the symptoms. And then the cool thing with neuroplasticity and the brain and the nervous system is that the brain can change.
Yeah.
And so we don't focus on the diagnosis. Kids come to us with a diagnosis, without a diagnosis, on medication, off medication, but we're simply going to measure the brain. And the brain can change at any age. And so when we start targeting those gaps, those areas of underwork or underconnectivity, often overworked, and start helping new connections form, new development form, fill in those gaps, then they start getting those quick wins.
Yeah.
And they start like, oh my gosh, like I actually don't hate reading.
Yeah.
It's just really hard, but I'm going to give it a little more effort.
Yeah.
And we'll start a lot of times seeing the attitude shift before we'll see a significant skill shift.
Right.
It's like if they were given 180% effort and now they're only having to give 160% effort.
Well, to
It's
drop
like-
the labels, right?
Yeah, it's just, we can start like, say, I've got some control. I've got some agency on like actually improving versus being just labeled and done.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fantastic. You guys. All right, Chris, I'm going to put you on. I got something glad. Oh, no, better not do that. All right.
You got a water
Do
bottle?
that, but we'll do this right here. You ready? Ooh. Oh, see, we got it. All right, let's do it because you're supposed to make this look easy. There it is. There it is. That looks easy, though. That looks easy.
I get to keep this.
But no, you cannot keep that. I have to have that to get home. That has my license and money in it. So, anyways, but my whole point to that was catching some. I mean, sometimes it's easy, right?
Yeah.
But there is a lot that goes into that.
Sure.
Especially,
Hand-eye coordination, balance. You have to have the right, attention in the moment. There's a lot going on.
Absolutely. So somebody comes to you and, that's the thing. It's like, my kid is not, I need him better at catching. What are you thinking? What goes into your mind when you hear that?
Specifically, like catching, I would say, first you have to do an assessment, like figure out, is he actually bad at catching or is it performance anxiety, right? Is he like freezing in the moment? Because that might be a whole component for sports, the mental component. If there's something in their head that limits their ability to function, like they won't catch as easily if they're worried that they're going to drop it, for example, or if there's a lot of pressure in the situation. Or if like Billy Visco tosses his wallet at you.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. I got to be ready to catch.
So I think that's part of it too, is like you have to provide exposure to the stimulus. And then the other aspect to it too is, the more reps that person gets doing that thing, the more confident they feel, which helps with the psychological component, but it also helps with the neurological and physiological side where you're just getting a bunch of reps with that kind of process in your brain. And I bet that's like the same with you, right?
Yeah. I was listening to your story and just
yeah,
I love hearing this different perspective in this different world.
It's wild how it comes together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool, but yeah.
Right. So always multiple systems in every situation, multiple systems. Like we have to know what to do, what to say, how to act, but we also have to recognize this is the time, this is the place to say that or to do that. We have to have social awareness, we have to have intellect, we have to have like common sense. Like all these different pieces and parts and factors are always coming together. And if any of those systems are off, then the response falls apart. I'll talk about anxiety as once again, it's such a common concern, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. Anxiety it's become almost like the number one struggle whenever families are walking into brain balance. And if a person has rehearsed and practiced all the potential responses of how they should hold it together in a potentially stressful situation, and they're ready, and yet when they actually get into the situation, the system that understands the severity or intensity, like is this a 2 out of 10 challenge, is this a 5 out of 10 challenge, is this an actual 10 out of 10 challenge, if the part of the brain that recognizes, oh, it's fine, we're just buddies, we're just tossing a thing back and forth, 2 out of 10, if the part of the brain that is recognizing that perceives it as 10 out of 10, I've got 75 million people watching me, I've got like if I drop this, like everyone's gonna hate me for the rest of my life, and you just spin it up into something bigger than reality, then by the time my strategy of like how I should respond should kick in, like it's already the situation's passed. I've just spun it up into something bigger. Because one part was off, overreacting or underreacting, and yes, it just always goes back to there's multiple systems in place in every situation, whether it's catching a ball or.
I think people do spin things up in their head and make them way bigger than they have to be. That's true in my industry as well. Somebody will Google personal trainers near me, or how do I recover from X injury, or how do I get fit, or how do I lose weight, and they'll build that up as like this huge commitment they have to make, and oftentimes that's what stops them, because there's so much in their head that they don't actually take an action or do something. So I definitely see a parallel there.
So if someone let me ask you a question. So when someone, even though they have that big concern, for whatever reason they still reach out to you in your office, like what do you start to walk them through to help them understand, like it can be little steps to still make it.
Yeah, I think
difference.
the biggest thing is shifting there's a big perception you need a bunch of motivation to do something. We have to be motivated to get to the gym and motivated to crush your workout and motivated, etc. Consistency and like deliberately putting in little bits of effort over a long period of time is so much more powerful than motivation ever is.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's just shifting that person's perspective from, yeah, you're not always going to feel like, working out, or you're not always going to feel like coming to your physical therapy session. But if you just stack reps and you slowly continue, building consistency,
Yeah.
then you start to, like we mentioned earlier, get feedback for, oh, this is working, this is making progress. And then the motivation comes,
Yeah.
and you get to take advantage of the motivation, have an amazing workout, have a really good day, and then it goes. But you have consistency, so you're able to stick with that throughout those periods. So I think for a lot of people that are kind of spinning their wheels, but they do decide to reach out, it's just like, hey, let's make this less emotional and just build a plan and stay consistent with that plan over a long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, the long haul instead of the
Yeah.
quick like sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
life, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So let me think. I feel all this coming together. It just everything, it's different, but it's the same. So we're talking about catching, things which you relate that to sports. But for some kids, it's not easy, but in the real grand scheme of things, we're like, yeah, it is. But and then it goes over here to even reading in front of their class, having a conversation, driving. It's just those things are causing something that should just be, but there's something down in there that they're just like, and so it's not actually that you're teaching someone to catch a ball or you're teaching someone to read in front of their class. It's more than that, I guess, right? I mean, because immediately a parent might think, oh, I just need to get some reading lessons,
Yeah.
but that's not, driving, how many parents have we had come in saying, well, they never thought their kid would, be ready to drive a car anywhere near 16 years old. And now all of a sudden they're able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's every situation that a person gets put into, there's a realm of like right response, right amount of effort, appropriate amount of difficulty or challenge, and then there's a wrong amount.
Yeah, we call that the proximal zone in training.
Yeah.
So you want somebody in the proximal zone where it's a little challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, continue.
No,
Yeah.
it's like there's this appropriate proximal range. And so what happens is when the response is off, and that can look like anything. If it's supposed to take 20 minutes of reading every day and it takes 40 or 60 or 2 hours or 5 hours and it still doesn't stick. If a Lego set breaks, it's okay to be frustrated, but if that turns into an all-out rage, it's okay to be a little bit anxious before you get up on a dance stage to perform for like a dance competition or to throw a baseball. Like all these situations, like there's an appropriate level of like anticipation, and then there is a too much, and there's a too little. I mean, we'll have it in the social world, especially, is one of those ones. You can pick up on social cues too much, but you can also pick up on social cues too little. And so, you're supposed to share, you're supposed to like take turns or not speak out in class. But if you miss the cue from the teacher of like, if you stop now, we're still good, then you never get to follow the rule of like, oh yeah, don't interrupt the teacher. We have to get the brain in our world like recognizing in that middle range of oh, I need to stop, versus never noticing, or the teacher gives you the look and you feel like the teacher just yelled at you, and then you shut down completely because maybe you should have asked for help, and you're like, no, the teacher hates me. Like, no, the teacher doesn't hate you. The teacher wants to help you.
Yeah.
So that brings me to an interesting topic of compensation. And it's not the compensation that people, I was trying to find a good definition on my phone where you guys were talking, but what does compensation look like in your world?
I mean, the most obvious answer to that would be compensation patterns when it comes to movement. So oftentimes, take for example, like a bench press, right? When somebody's pressing, they're thinking about moving their hands from point A to point B. And their brain will move their hands from point A to point B. There's a bunch of different ways it can fire your muscles and coordinate your body to accomplish that goal. And if there is some kind of injury or some kind of issue with, let's say, your rotator cuff or your chest, your hands will still get to point A to point B, but you'll utilize all these other muscle groups that potentially aren't ready to load with that much weight to accomplish that goal. So you end up getting a higher risk of injury, despite the fact that you're still technically going from point A to point B. So in a training context, we scale that back and we say, okay, we want to build proprioception, which if you're familiar with the term is just your like awareness of your body in space. Proprioception of which muscles are we coordinating to accomplish that goal. So with a bench press, I'm focused on retracting and pushing through my chest and making sure that I follow a particular path versus just moving my hands to here. So I want to feel what's supposed to be working be the thing that's doing the working. So in an exercise context, compensation is frequently movement compensations. And those are all over the body: hips, knees, shoulders, walking gait, running gait, and figuring out, okay, what is the thing that's not working and how do we fix that thing so that everything moves better when you try to accomplish that goal is a huge part of movement education.
Absolutely. So I hear some things very relevant to your side of things.
Yeah, one question I was just wondering is, like, when you start focusing on those smaller components leading to the bigger goal, like, is there an average of like how long that takes, or like when you start seeing progress with like those little adjustments or those little components? How quickly do you start seeing the wins?
So research-wise, there is kind of an answer to that question. Okay. It's 3 months.
Okay.
So it takes about 3 months for you to go through what's called a neurological adaptation to a stimulus, and then your body goes through physiological adaptation after that point. From an anecdotal perspective, it can vary dramatically between people, right? Some people are much more present in their body and have had more experience maybe playing sports as kids or just, being active, versus other kids, maybe they have played a lot of video games or they just like to be on their computer more and they don't feel their body as much. So I think there is a pretty wide range of how long it takes people. And, it really is another form of that whole regressing movements and regressing things to a level where you can easily do them and then progressing them. So I might implement an isolation exercise to help them really connect with that muscle group and then move them back to a movement that involves more muscle groups, but now they have better education with just that one.
Yeah. So, and then you get that sturdy foundation. And
right, yeah.
You just kind of keep progressing. That makes sense. Okay. Remind me my next question.
What does compensation look like outside the gym?
Okay, I'd say in our world, the most common, and the one that comes to my mind more than anything, is just avoidance. It's like that's like the biggest like coping skill.
That's in the gym too. People will avoid things that make them hurt. They don't try to figure out how to do them. So
it's avoidance. Like if I'm talking to parents and they're like, oh, he comes by it honestly, I had the same struggle. And so often it's like, well, do you still have the struggle now? And they're like, well, yeah, but I've learned to deal with it. Which what that means is I've learned how to do something else instead. So where I've not set up myself in a job or in a situation where I'm having to work through that challenge, I can work around it. And so I'd say it's avoidance. And
I feel majorly called out, by the way, because my entire career has been avoiding computer work and desk work and anything where I have to stare at a screen for more than like an hour. And it's all just, being as mobile and active and switching topics as possible, because that coordinates with my brain.
Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, like, there are absolutely high functioning adults that do this extremely well. I'd say some of the most gifted people, like public figures and things like that, we see absolute compensation, absolute workaround as far as some of their challenges, and they've leaned into their strengths. The problem is that way more of the percentage of population, I go back to missed potential. Like they don't find that way to work around, work through in a way that like still brings out a lot of their biggest, best potential. And so when we work, we ultimately kind of try to scrape away, move away all the strengths and say the actual anchor, like the actual thing holding you back is this.
Yeah.
If these areas were 10% better, 20% better, 30% better, the whole picture, the whole brain will be able to function at its best possibility. So in brain balance, that's what we talk about, an initial imbalance. Now let's leave alone those areas that are already good, already solid. We know those things are above average often, but if we can bring the parts that are not up, there's less need for avoidance and workarounds.
Yeah.
And when that gets addressed early in life, then it just broadens the path, is our experience. It broadens the options for students to do what they want to do, to live the dream that they want to live, without as much concern that focus issue or that behavioral struggle or that anxiety is going to hide that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's like you're only as strong as your strongest link.
Yeah.
Right. In a
Weakest
chain.
link.
Weakest link? Only as strong as your weakest link. Yeah. There we go. That's what I meant.
Right. And that, but that's the point. Yeah.
Yes,
The weakest
yeah.
link. Like
Yeah.
if that, every bit that we can get that weakest link a little stronger, a little few more fibers binding it up,
Yeah.
then the whole chain.
And I'm sure sometimes like that is humbling for people because they're so used to compensating, being able to do, X task. But then when you strip away all the stuff they're good at and you're like, hey, here's the one thing that you're not doing well in this context that we need to work on.
Yeah.
That has to be frustrating because in a fitness context, it's frustrating for people too. Like we say, okay, yes, you're really strong and you've been working out for years and you can bench X amount, but like, do you have any coordination and any, movement integrity in that regard? Okay, no. So we need to regress way back the level to a very easy level in order to fix that component of your body's movement. So it seems like a parallel there.
Yeah. I think the conversation is like almost identical.
Yeah.
I'd say the response in our context tends to be a little different, and that I would say it often brings like relief because they're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's like this unstated thing we've always recognized, and now you're saying that like it's real.
Yeah. Is that more with children than adults? Do you find more, I don't know, like adults that have been compensating, say, for 20 years?
Yeah.
And then you're like, but this thing you need to work on. Is that still provide the same relief that you see in kids?
I really think it does. I do think it brings relief because it's this different context. It's like they've known in these scenarios that they've had to work around it. They've known it was harder than it was supposed to be. They feel it. And so when someone says, you're right, you have been having to work harder, and then they have hope that they can actually do something about it,
Yeah.
that's where, because it's more on this mental cognitive side, I think it still just generally brings relief more often than frustration. Like I can see how the frustration would come up in your conversations.
Well, yeah, and while you're talking, I can see other parallels, right?
Yeah.
Like injuries, or maybe there's other health components where when they do get that kind of aha moment, it does provide relief. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure both you guys in your world see people, it's like they can't do something. And it's like, I can't do this. But then eventually that turns into, maybe that's just who I am. It's not that I can't anymore. It's just maybe that's who I am. I mean, do you see that in your world, Chris, that somebody has accepted a role? I mean, came to you just
all the time.
completely deflated, defeated?
Well, specifically with injuries, someone will have let's say a bum knee or a bad shoulder, or maybe like I've worked with quite a few clients who have gone through multiple back surgeries. Like they had a fusion and then the vertebrae on either side of that fusion started to have issues, so they went in and got another fusion. Before you know it, you got like 5 levels of your back fused. You're just like, yeah, I'm not going to move well anymore. Or like, let's say, a classic gym bro who's just been doing basic bodybuilding stuff and his shoulder feels terrible now.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I just have a bad shoulder, life's good, I have a bad shoulder. It's like, no, like there is an approach that you can take where you can improve your shoulder, and it doesn't have to be like this life sentence.
This is who I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. Yeah. Isaac, what's
I think it's one of the biggest things that keeps a majority of the families from ever reaching out to us. It's like they find the identity in the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, that's the answer,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And when families are like, no, there's got to be something deeper. Like, I'm glad we have the diagnosis. Now we can get some support in school. We can get some services. Like maybe we're going to go down the medication route. Like it has its uses 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But like when they still have that gut feeling of like, there's got to be something deeper that we can still actually do about it to help something get better. That's when they reach out to us. And so to me, I think it's one of those things that it stops us from ever having the conversations. The people that reach out are the ones that there's got to still be hope.
Yeah.
Maybe they're feeling like we're the last hope, but that's the conversations that we have.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the, like when I was thinking about answering that question, a lot of the consultations that I have with people, they're coming in for, maybe a different reason than, let's take the shoulder, for example, than a shoulder injury. And they're like, yeah, my shoulder hurts, I just can't press overhead. Yeah. And it's like this little thing they're throwing in there as like, oh, I can't do that, just so you know. But, I do want to lose weight and work out and get healthy. My shoulder's bad.
Right.
It's like, okay, let's go to that real quick. Like, why is your shoulder bad versus, let's avoid anything with your shoulder. That would be the wrong approach. So I actually encounter a lot of people that still have misconceptions where they think like, this is just how I am. I have bad knees. I have issues eating and I like to overeat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to me for a different reason. And then we get a very interesting opportunity to educate them on like, no, you can make progress in the areas that you thought were kind of, your root.
Yeah. No, that identity piece of like, my shoulder just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm just a bad eater.
Yeah.
My knees are bad. Like it's that identity piece.
Well, and I bet,
and just like accept it and write it off and like, but let me go ahead and talk to you about all these other pieces.
Yeah.
No, and even as you say that, we do have those conversations too in our office where they're like, he has this diagnosis or that diagnosis, so he has that. But let's go ahead and still talk about some sensory concerns or some anxiety stuff. It's not the ADHD part, but these other areas. Let's talk about those. I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
it's all connected.
Rewind, go back to that part.
It's all connected.
So I think a lot of times people start to identify labels and take those on when they do try to solve that problem. And they are met with lack of success multiple times. So like, let's say somebody's coming in for, an injury, but they've had 4 previous appointments with a chiropractor, a physical therapist, they got a steroid shot in their shoulder, and, maybe they tried a peptide. And none of that worked. And so after they've been faced with, oh, I tried and it didn't work, oh, I've tried and it didn't work, oh, I've tried and it didn't work, then they're like, oh, this is how it is, right? I'm just going to accept it. And I'm sure it's similar with the kids you see, because maybe they were put on a medication and that helped for a while until the side effects outweighed the benefit, and they tried some kind of CBT and that was effective for a while, but it didn't really fix all the issues. So it seems like oftentimes those things that people have that are labels, they started trying to fix them and then they were like, oh, it's just who I am.
Yeah, I think 100%. And I was thinking one other version is the parents who struggled with it themselves, and it's that statement of like, oh, he comes by it honestly, and he's just angry, but I know where he gets it. He just ADHD, but I know where he gets it. She's anxious, but I know where she gets it, and it's like it's this identity, almost like a generational now, like identity of come by it honestly, instead of considering, can we break that chain? Can we break that generational pattern, because the brain can change. Now maybe we have to do like more work than in some other family. May your family have been more likely to have kids with a similar diagnosis? Like there's absolutely genetic components as far as like kind of precursors and moving down a certain path, but the way larger percentage of effect on the brain is the external environment, and not that families are doing something wrong, but that you can do something right. You can do something to help it. and make it better than it was, get to full potential. Whether that comes, diagnosis or not, that's not the point. It's like, let's just get each individual's brain developed and functioning at its full potential, fill in as many gaps as possible, and then see what we got left, to work on.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. In my line of work, we always look at what the person's life is like outside of fitness and health. Like, for example, somebody that is like a desk jockey, sits all day long and works on their computer.
Right.
There are exercises which are going to give them massive reward, like strengthening their upper back and opening up their hip flexors, because it's directly targeted at their daily life and improving that aspect that they kind of are forced into. Or with sport, take for example like a tennis player. They're constantly producing overhead power in a downward direction. They never really get exposure to overhead power in the opposite direction. And baseball is the same way too. They'll do so much throwing this way that they are really weak this way. And so it's always like looking at what type of stimulus does life hand you regularly. Let's make sure that you're balanced from a physiological perspective as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things I've heard today is, between the I struggle with and the I'm labeled as I'm diagnosed with, I've injured and I can't raise it, and there's no periods after those anymore with you guys. That's not it. That's not the end of it. You guys both, there's a comma.
Yeah.
And it can get better. It's not that you live with that. Tell me, as we close this out, tell me one thing that you're left with today, Isaac.
I've just been appreciative of hearing so much similar conversation, but in just a different line of work.
Yeah.
Still dealing with people, still dealing with emotions, still dealing with hopes, still dealing with frustrations. And so I've just loved hearing the conversations and to the point you were just making, Billy, that like when a circumstance or an issue or an injury like happens, it doesn't have to be a period at the end of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Like I think that's such a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that has happened. We do have that diagnosis. We do have that injury. Okay, now what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
How are we going to still keep moving forward and getting better than we were?
Yeah.
Exactly. Chris, what's your takeaway?
Yeah. So my business is called Resilience Training for a reason, right? Resilience is the process of taking a negative or a challenging encounter, whether that be an injury or whether that be a life circumstance, and then instead of letting that thing push you down and lower your ability to function in life, you instead use it to make you stronger and adapt and overcome and move forward. And I just think it's so important to remember that our bodies are not fragile systems. We're anti-fragile, which means that when applied with pressure, we adapt and become stronger over time. And there's always a potential for your body to heal cognitively or physiologically, just a matter of making sure that it's provided with the correct training, whether that be cognitive or physiological or emotional, and then adapting slowly over time. So I think that's my big takeaway.
Love it. Man, thank you guys both. Absolutely amazing stuff. And I'm going to cut right there because I go into my closing. So
Sweet.
beautiful.
Cool. That's fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything else you might want to add, either of y'all, that like we can say it and throw it in, or you guys good? That went freaking amazing. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Do you feel like you got to share
Yeah.
anything you were thinking about?
Yeah, no,
there
it was good.
anything-
I think it was good. I don't have anything that's popping in my head. It's like,
in
oh, I
your
meant
head.
to say
Okay,
that.
cool. Yeah. 'Cause
I know one of our big goals was trying to not just make it like.
and leave the cameras rolling if you don't mind.
Just not.
I am.
Okay,
Just
thank
try
you,
not-
Ariel. I
just
forgot
trying
who was
not to
back
make it all
there.
about brain balance.
Yeah.
Trying to make sure that as we have these conversations, like to
Yeah.
make it interesting and meaningful, like across the board. And so,
There is so many parallels, with the way that you approach anybody when it comes to coaching them through something, right?
Right.
Like if you take just the body, it still uses the same principles as like your mind, you find the weaker links, you progress the small things really gradually over time, and then they improve, and then the whole system gets stronger. And that's just so similar for both aspects.
yeah. And yes, and I see it that, man, when you get it dialed in and really get
Yeah.
what those weak links
Yeah.
truly are, like what I see is that the changes then happen exponentially faster
Oh yeah. Yeah.
versus if you just avoided them.
Yeah.
Just try to make the strong stronger.
Yep.
Like that's where you plateau.
Mhm.
Like that's where you top out. But it's like when you start making those little incremental adjustments on the right areas,
Yeah.
those I call them anchors, things dragging everything else down.
Mhm.
You lighten the anchor just a little bit.
Yeah.
um,
It's so fascinating too,
Yeah.
because that's like the same for when you're addressing a problem and when you're looking to improve elite performance. Like, both are the same. Like if you're looking to address a problem, like you look at, okay, what's the thing causing this overarching problem? What's the small components that we can fix?
Right.
But then like if you're trying to get somebody from good athletic potential to excellent athletic potential, you have to do the same process. You look through everything and say, okay, what is the weakest link in this process? Even if it's good, like that's what we would target to improve.
right.
Yeah, which I'm sure you could do with brain balance too, in
Yeah.
terms of cognitive performance and emotional regulation, all that.
Right. 100%. It's basically tell me what's going on good.
Yeah.
Okay, now we know it.
Yeah.
Now let's spend all of our time on what's not.
Yeah.
And so often, like especially like in the education system, is an example. But even in parenting, so often is the case of like find out how a kid learns best, find out the best, like what they prefer, their natural tendencies, and just only lean into that.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from a good place, and I'd say for a percentage of the population that works,
Yeah.
but it gets applied to a broader population that it doesn't actually work. And so when a seemingly good idea gets misapplied, then you get almost like a purposeful avoidance, a purposeful like compensation. And it's just like, we have to compensate. Let's
Yeah.
set up the entire school day, the entire parenting model around a compensation model.
Yeah.
And that ultimately has a high chance of limiting
Yeah.
that future potential.
Well, it's got to be I guess there's a pun here, but it's got to be a balance, right? Because I mean, people do have natural aptitudes and talents, right?
100%.
And you want to encourage those
Right.
aptitudes. Like somebody's really good at public speaking, put them in a place where they can develop that. Or someone's really athletic, like put them in a program where they can figure out how athletic can they be.
Yeah.
But also, I think it becomes more obvious when the missing components become problems that stop the bigger success. Like
Right.
all of a sudden you have the athlete that's performing extremely well, but they have no emotional regulation.
Right.
And so then they go out in the field and, somebody scores on them and they lose it.
Right.
And then now it's impacting what they're good at because of the
100%.
thing that they weren't looking at, the smaller component.
Yeah.
And,
Right. It's like when find the strengths and train that up is applied correctly, it works. But when it's not, when it is applied to a situation that there are these other factors, performing in practice, not in the game.
Yeah.
The coach tries to give you a correction and you're become a know-it-all all of a sudden. Like,
No,
you don't
why
know.
would you tell me?
You're an idiot, coach.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, whoa, like know your place.
Yeah.
And be coachable so that you can actually like apply that natural gift that you have. And so when those scenarios show up, like if you don't get that right, you're gonna have a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And that those scenarios are becoming more and more common. Like that's the other part too. Like things that were true 20, 30, 40 years ago, not the same. Like as how often and how frequent these things are happening today. So it's a real issue that has to be addressed.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to go through your guys' assessment process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still gotta
I
get
know
that
you
scheduled.
offered me that. I would love
I
to
know.
do it. It'd be cool.
Gotta get it on the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Assessments
this
is the
week.
word of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just missing, like, here's what you're missing. Assessments out there, y'all. I mean, really, because,
Yeah, you don't know where you're at.
I think so many places just, jump to a lot of, instead of doing the underground, the hard work, that's the hard work. I mean, the assessments are, people come out of those. I mean, I know when I went through my assessment, I was worn out. I was done. You know, I mean, it definitely makes gives us answers. You know that.
Yeah, that was one of the main things that I wanted to really integrate into my onboarding process in my business, was that there was a very structured, 3-part assessment with a trainer, then a physical therapy evaluation, and then a nutrition consultation. Having all of those assessments compiled into one resource that all the professionals can look at and utilize to help the person.
Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff.
Cool. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we did it.
We did it. All right, that's a wrap.